What's up, guys? We are back with the second half of our Wave 3 Conan the Barbarian Ultimates from Super7, taking a look at the titular Conan the Barbarian, because I just couldn't wait and we did Thulsa Doom first. So we're taking a look today at the War Paint Conan. This is by far the most wanted Conan for me when it comes to this line, just because I know what to expect with these figures, but it also seems like this one might be the best one of the bunch, too, just at first glance. I'm very excited to take a look at this guy. Now, of course, as far as packaging goes, we've got our very familiar, very much accustomed trapezoidal style design that we've got for Ultimates, so slipcover treatment. Just like some of the other ones in the Conan line, this gets a very faux finish, so it feels leathery, almost like snake skinny in some ways. Snake skinny, that sounds weird. But it looks really cool, and it has sort of the patterning of the war paint on it as well. You've got your Conan logo and the sword embossed in foil on the front and back. But again, of course, it's a slipcover, so we pop this guy off, and then you've got your figure there in the big old window, so you can see Conan with all of his accessories, and then the back of the box gives you the Wheel of Woe, as well as a little bio for everyone's favorite Sumerians. So let's do it. Let's pull them out and take a look. And here we go, out of the package, our War Paint Conan the Barbarian Ultimates from Super7. Just like Thulsa Doom, the best version of the character that we've gotten so far. So this is the third one. We've gotten two Thulsa Dooms. This is the third Conan. So he was Pit Fighter Conan in Wave 1. Wave 2 was just Iconic Pose Conan, and now Wave 3 gets us War Paint Conan. I think there's a number of reasons why this is the better version. The first of which is an improved head sculpt in many ways. Well, in every way. Both heads are improved. And then this guy has a lot of paint on him, and he's also a bit duller than any other Conan. Well, the Pit Fighter Conan is mostly covered in clothes, but Iconic Pose definitely has the shine problem. This guy still has it, but it's nowhere near as bad as pretty much any other figure, so I'm very happy with that. He is, for all intents and purposes, like the same kind of figure as well both of them. It's very similar. They reuse parts across the board. This is very much a big reuse of Iconic Pose Conan if we're going to go for just, straight reuse. Pit Fighter Conan also uses some of this as well. But it works fine as far as Conan, same character, just, an hour later. So let's see what he can do, see how he moves around. Again, very similar, very Motu classics. These guys are very much, just sort of He-Man style figures. So we've got a head that can look up slightly, look down, not really any. No tilt, you do have full rotation. It is going to get a little tight because of the hair. Arms up and out at the shoulders, so more than perpendicular. You've got rotation, of course. We've got our bicep swivel, you've got your single jointed elbow, and then you've got hinges and rotation at the wrist for these hands here. They will change depending on which hands you've got. We've got our waist twist, and you've got your crunch. He goes backwards slightly, and then forwards about that far. Again, if you're familiar with Motu Classics He-Man, you basically know what's going to happen here. Legs pretty much all the way out. The furry loincloth is going to get in the way a little bit, but the movement is there. And then forward about that far. Backwards, not really any, but slightly. Got your twist up there. Single jointed. You've got some rotation. When you actually articulate it, you do have a little bit of shimmy at that knee if you needed it, but it's mostly going to be at your thigh. And then we've got our rocker, which is really good, and then our hinge down at the ankle. So you got plenty of movement down here as well. Again, very, very similar to what is considered like your base level Ultimates. Because he's just a regular human, he's very much just normal. There's not really anything that's going to get in the way of the articulation for this particular figure, but it's still an Ultimate. So you're looking at single jointed arms and legs, and then a more traditional ab crunch, waist twist kind of torso. Now, articulation aside, the big thing for this figure is undoubtedly the looks, because, well, one, he has such a unique look, but he's also so different in finish from the other Conans, Konai. What's the plural of Conan? He's just different. And a lot of that is due to the fact, again, that he has a different finish. So Iconic Pose Conan definitely looks like he's been doused in baby oil in many respects. This guy is nowhere near that bad. I'm going to preface that by saying that he's being blasted by some really bright lights right now, but it's still nowhere near as bad as I was kind of expecting. I figured he'd be very much like Iconic Pose Conan, and he is, but he's also not. All of this war paint and the blood splatter is definitely playing a factor in dulling his complexion, for lack of a better word. all of this brown paint is definitely giving him a more matte finish. It's absorbing light rather than reflecting it. And of course, the red splatter breaks him up quite a bit. So he's very asymmetrical in, in every way when it comes to his torso and up. And all of this paint is really clean and crisp, very deliberate in its placement. It's definitely not just haphazardly done. Even this blood splatter looks, I mean, like it looks like it's been splattered on the figure. And I do really like that. So it's definitely, in a few key areas, arm, and then the chest, and then the waist down here. But it looks really good. And of course, it breaks up what would be a rather dull color scheme for this figure otherwise. Flesh tone and brown doesn't make for the most dynamic color scheme. So just having this little bit of red here and there does make him pop a little bit. Now, again, he is very much, a parts for use heavy figure. So you're talking about the same kind of torso that we had on the iconic pose Conan, probably the Pit Fighter too, but he's wearing a bunch of clothes. You've got a new loincloth down here, which has a little belt with some tassels on the back, furry loincloth. There's a hole back here, which we will get to here in a bit. And then you've got the same legs that are on the iconic post Conan. It's the same pants, basically. So pants, and then the furry boots with all the straps. And paint is really clean and crisp down here as well. So you've got the white fur with a little bit of a, I don't know, it's kind of like a mustardy brown wash in there, and then you've got the black straps to break it up, and they look really good. They looked good on the iconic pose, and I believe Pit Fighter Conan also uses the same shins and down. So again, very, very similar to the other Conan, but of course he stands out because of this iteration of him. So it's a very familiar figure in terms of how he's constructed, how he feels, but the finish and the presentation is incredibly different here. Now, he also has a new head sculpt, which, every Conan so far has had a new head sculpt, and this guy is no different. He's also still got his necklace on, but the head sculpt is miles better than all the others. Again, I think that is one in part to just an improved sculpt. The likeness is not 100% there. I'm not going to say that it is. It is very close. So it's better than Iconic Pose. It's better than Pit Fighter for sure. So they have made a lot of progressions in making this as accurate as can be up to this point. And again, the finish is a lot better and a lot more consistent when it comes to just not having so much shine on it. Again, I'm assuming that's in part due to a lot of paint. He does have a lot more darker colors on his face, so again, absorbing, not reflecting light. And then the eyes are incredibly clean and crisp up there. The hair also looks really nice too. A little bit of a wash in there just to bring out some of that detail. But I think the likeness coupled with the finish and this particular paint scheme for the torso is really going to make this guy stand out, and ideally going to make him probably the preferred Conan amongst these figures. He is, without a doubt, the best looking Conan we've gotten from Super 7 so far, at least as far as movie Conans are concerned. And then here we go with our comparison to our other Conan figures. So we've got Wave 3. They're not in order. We've got Wave 3, we've got Wave 1, we've got Wave 2 over here. And you can see, I mean, there's a lot of similarities. There's a lot of parts sharing here. Bodies are basically the same. Legs are the same. Boots are the same. But there are key differences. This guy's got the new furry loincloth. This guy has, of course, his whole getup, the spiked gauntlets, different heads across the board. And, of course, he's got a helmet here. The big thing, though, is 100% the head sculpts, because without a doubt there is a huge progression. This one, at this point now, I don't think there's much likeness to Arnold anymore. Now that I've had it for long enough, it definitely has shown a lot of its issues. This one's pretty good, but I still think the hair kind of messes up the actual outline of the head sculpt and kind of gets in the way and loses a little bit of that likeness. But this one is just, miles and leagues ahead of these two. So like I said, when it comes to these three Conan figures, you're likely looking at the best of the bunch, the newest and the most improved when it comes to likeness, paint, finish, the whole 9 yards really. And then let's do some size comparisons. So we will move our Conan aside, and let's do another Ultimates figure. So here he is with Lion-O. So Thundercats Wave 1 Lion-O. And let's do a turtle. So here he is with Donnie. So you can see how he stacks up with stuff from Super 7. But of course, not exactly the same. Lion-O a little bit taller. And then Donnie, of course, a little bit shorter. And then let's do a couple non-Super 7 things. So here he is with a Marvel Legend. So here he is with Nova, a very standard Bucky cap style figure. And then here he is with a Black Series Boba Fett, just to give you an idea of how he stacks up to some quote-unquote normal 1/12 6-inch scale figures. Now, as far as accessories goes, Conan is very similar to the other Conan that we've gotten so far, but of course he's got some unique stuff. So it's all very tight when it comes to what each figure has. They're all very similar. To start with, he does get an extra head, of course. It's on right now. So we've got a screaming head sculpt, and this is pretty close to Arnold, I think. I think the head sculpts in this particular figure, in this wave in general, really, Conan and Thulsa Doom, are very, very accurate, especially when compared to the older stuff we've already gotten. So, we've got these two, and for my money, I'm probably going to stick with this one, but I do like this one as well. I mean, I think the likeness is pretty close. They're not perfect. Neither of them are perfect. And, they do have some issues here and there, but I do, again, think that they are, in many ways, not nearly as shiny as any other Conan we've gotten, and the war paint aspect of it does soften the faces up enough to where any kind of shine is very easily eliminated in many ways. So the extra paint on these faces is going a long way, whether it was really intended to do that or not. It is definitely helping with the overall finish and presentation. Now, we do get some extra hands. Of course, that's pretty normal. So we've got one on him already, so he's got a gripping hand, and we've got these flat, relaxed hands that he comes with in the box. You get a set of gripping hands, of course. These are vertically hinged hands, for melee weapons. And then we get a set of fists, which are laterally hinged, and then all of them have the appropriate war paint aesthetic to them. He does, of course, get the sword. So this is the Atlantean sword. And we've got this before. It's not new, and it is still enormous. So if you were concerned about the size on this thing, it wasn't shrunken down. Here's one of the other ones right here. It's the exact same thing. It's done up in a little bit of a different presentation. It's got more metallic paint on it this time around. And then, of course, it does have different layers of blood. So you've got, a little blood splatter that leads up to a big, chunk of blood. And then like the tip, which is a little bit darker and, more blood encrusted. So he does have the same sword, but I think the finish on it is better. And I like the, the battle aspect of this. Now, he does have something that's very unique to this figure, and we're going to need the sword for this. And I'm not a big fan of this accessory. If there's one thing that I wish, honestly, I don't even think it needs to be included. It is an accessory that suffers because of the size of this sword. So this version of Conan has a sheath, a scabbard, and boy, is it a big one. So this thing is humongous. It is definitely a product of the size of the Atlantean sword, so it goes in here, but this thing, it's way too big. I mean, this is as tall as the figure almost, and it has a peg hole on the figure itself, so it goes on his back, like this, and then you can have him with the sword on it, but I mean, that's pretty ridiculous. I know I'm never going to use it. I wish that they had scaled the sword down just a tad bit to make this look a little bit better. At the end of the day, it's probably not a big deal because, I mean, ultimately, I'm always going to have the sword in his hand when it comes to my display. But that doesn't make this any less weird. I mean, it's a humongous chunk of plastic. It looks fine. I mean, it's got a nice metallic paint on it. You've got the little fur accents and everything, and it pegs onto him and stays onto him just fine, surprisingly. But at the same time, this big monster sword is probably not something you're ever going to have hanging off the back of this figure. So yeah, overall, I mean, without a doubt, best Conan figure that we've gotten. This and the Thulsa Doom from the same wave are the best figures I think we've gotten, period, when it comes to this entire line. They've made some considerable improvements. They've clearly learned from some of the other figures. Thulsa Doom has made huge headway just in fully clothed soft goods figures, but this Conan in particular has made huge strides in likeness, presentation, finish, the overall paint, and just, of course, how it compares to the other two figures. It's leaps and bounds ahead of Wave 1 and Wave 2. The only real gripe I have with this figure is the fact that it has that really goofy sheath for the sword. I'd rather it honestly not even be included because I'm never going to use it, and it just doesn't look right on this figure because, again, the sword has and remains to be a little bit oversized, so of course the sheath has to be as well. Beyond that, very happy with this guy, and at this point, this is the the movie Conan to beat. So that's going to do it for this look at the Super 7 Ultimates Conan the Barbarian Wave 3 Warpaint Conan. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.